Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Rene and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
Welcome back to another episode of the Martial Culture. I almost said the Radical MMA Podcast, which it mostly is.
Oh, no, don't say that.
The Martial Culture Podcast.
Thank you.
Underwritten by Radical MMA.
I'm sorry, I had to catch my breath. Matt just made me laugh like crazy. You see, this is what makes the Martial Culture Podcast great. We have your wonderful sense of humor and some of my limited knowledge. We make a good team.
It's good timing because I didn't watch the greatest UFC of probably the year, if not more, over the weekend. So I have no.
It was pretty amazing. You know, when I heard this like BMF belt stuff, I'm like, ugh. But at the same time, it was a very compelling matchup. It's extremely compelling matchup, and you're talking about a boxer who is much more of a kind of endurance fighter, long-term wear you down fighter, versus someone who has significant knockout victories and stoppages. So it's like I was very very intrigued by the fight. And the thing is, when I went into the fight, I'm like, wow, these two guys are really powerful up-and-comers, and let's see where this fight plays out.
We're talking about Masvidal and Diaz.
And Diaz, yeah. And not to mention the rest of the card, but just the idea of the promotion of the kind of belt that they created. At the same time, like, sometimes razzle-dazzle sells.
It's a show.
Yeah, it's a show. And the idea, like, who is the thing is interesting, and this is kind of true, is they're both like guys who clawed their way up from the lowest of the low divisions. I have seen the video of Diaz's very first fight, and very first MMA fight, way back when. And this is years ago, and it was in a dojo somewhere in California, and it was just like him versus another guy, and he probably got paid negative $10.
They gave him a free bag of weed.
Yeah, right. And he probably lost money on the trip over there. And then you know how Masvidal got started, right?
No.
So you remember Kimbo Slice, right? Mm-hmm. Kimbo Slice used to hold these backyard
I remember those
brawls,
on YouTube,
right,
yeah.
exactly. And that's where Masvidal got started too. And he was like, I wouldn't say he's Kimbo Slice's protege because he wasn't training with him, but he definitely was someone who came up through the underground of the underground. And when you say underground, people are like, oh, it's underground fighting, and it's really not underground. But this was like literally in someone's backyard with bare knuckle, and that's bare knuckle, and it's just rock'em sock'em robots. But also, she showed in the original fights quite a bit of technique, and you can even see back then where he's got heart because he takes some shots, he gets brought down a little bit, comes back up, and winds up getting the stoppage. And this is a person who came from the bottom of the bottom, and they worked themselves up to the headlining Madison Square Garden. Man, that is a compelling story, dramatically, but also these are also two very technical fighters in their own realms and very different. And so you want to call it whatever you want to call it, but it is a very worthwhile matchup. And if getting a weird funny belt that says we're the baddest MFer or whatever, and getting The Rock to present it can get more people to appreciate really good fighters who put it on the line and who are fighters. There's some people in MMA right now who are sportsmen who have gone into fighting, right? They're sportsmen. And I would say, a good example of that is, and this is not a denigration, but they're athletic sportsmen. They come from a lot of times wrestling, or they come from some other sport, and they treat it like a sport and a fight sport for sure. And I would say T.J. Dillashaw, who I'm a big fan of, other than the cheating and stuff, but and I would say a lot of that's really kind of like the way he is. He's like, this is a sport that I compete in. We're not here. We're not. I'm not fighting for my life, in Stockton or something. But where Diaz and Masvidal come from, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. For them, they are fighters first, and it doesn't matter. You know what I was thinking they would do? It was like too movie, but when Masvidal, they both wanted to go on, I'm like, I could totally see these guys going out in the parking lot and just finishing the next 2 rounds out there.
34th Street.
Yeah, 34th Street, right? I would totally see it,
How would they monetize that, though?
I know, right? They're there to make money for sure, but they're not only there for money.
Well, I was a little disappointed with Masvidal in the post-fight interview.
What did he say?
When he was talking about the rematch with Diaz, obviously he wants a rematch, but Dana White says it's not. That's not next.
Yeah, no, and also I thought it was, it was a decisive win, regardless of what people say.
Yeah,
Let me go over.
Dana White was like, I don't know what the next couple rounds would have held, but Masvidal was winning
Decisively.
So you can't go hypothetical. But Masvidal said that they were like, well, who do you want to fight next? He said, I'll fight whoever pays the most.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's got to make money.
No,
but
of course.
He was like, I'll fight Canelo.
Yeah. No, and the other thing is he's, I kind of like that attitude. It's like he's not picking his fighters. He's like, I'll fight whoever pays me the most, and I'll fight anybody.
Yeah. He's got to strike while the iron's hot too, because
exactly.
6 months from now he might be replaced by somebody else. I don't think so, but if he can make $100 million now, do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing is Conor McGregor's coach John Kavanaugh said this, and it said in response to Conor McGregor being a little over the top. He said, you can criticize him all you want, but the name of the fight game is to get in, make as much money, and take as little damage as possible. And then, that's it. Like your fighting career is short, so you have to provide for the rest of your life at that moment.
Yeah, nobody wants to be 50 and still fighting.
Right, exactly.
You shouldn't be.
Like, honestly, I think Anderson Silva's like that, where he wants to compete and he feels like, and there's a lot of fighters like that. But yeah, but at the same time, you're right. I mean, you have to strike while the iron's hot.
Competing at a high level, you can't be.
Yeah.
You got 10 years, get in, get out, make your money, and then sell cars.
Right, or open up a restaurant like Michael Jordan did or something.
Sell houses on Long Island.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. And so I don't fault him at all. And let me just give you my pre-fight primer on this fight. And then I said to everybody, if Masvidal's smart, he'll win. He'll win, but I don't think he's going to be smart. And what I meant by that is the challenge to go, and this is very Japanese, right? Japanese fighters do this a lot, or used to. Say to go into the aite no dohyo, which means your opponent's ring. Dohyo is the ring of the sumo ring, but they don't mean sumo. What they mean is like, okay, if your opponent is a really good striker, I'm going to strike with him. If he's a really good clinch wrestler, I'm going to clinch wrestle with him. If he's a really good ground grappler, I'm going to ground grapple with him. And I'm not going to avoid what he does best. I'm going to go right to what he does best and test myself there, because the goal is not to win on strategy necessarily. The goal is a more mental game of testing your mettle against the toughest of what the person could bring. And a lot of fighters do that. And some don't, some do. But you have to, it's not the smartest strategy, no. but at the same time, it's really freaking gutsy.
Yeah.
And the other thing is Masvidal is a very crisp striker. So you can say, well, I'm going to go and box Diaz. But the interesting thing was, that's what I thought he would do. The interesting thing was, if you watch the fight, he definitely boxed with him, but he also was smart too. So he did, I thought, the perfect. He tested himself, but he also tested himself in a way that was smart, where he 50-50. So he clinched, and it's funny because the decisive moment of the fight came from him being a very smart fighter, where they clinched, then he hit him off the break with I forgot. I think it's 2 elbows, or he hit him with something and then another elbow, and then he kicked him in the face as Diaz bent backwards. So he went boom, he hit him with one strike, then he cracked him with the elbow, which is the one that opened the cut up. Mm-hmm. And then as Diaz stumbling down, before his hands go to the floor, he kicks him in the face, and Diaz is leaning over, almost about to fall over, and boom, he kicks him. I thought Diaz was out right there.
Yeah.
I thought he was out right there, but Diaz, being one tough son of a gun, got up and continued to fight. But basically, Masvidal won that fight in the first round because he opened up that cut, and then throughout the fight, it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the medical care stopped it. The problem I have with that is, I don't know if it would have been stopped in Las Vegas. There has to be consistency, and yeah, I don't know, and because that definitely was a huge cut, but it was not bleeding into his eye, it seemed to me. However, I'm not the doctor, so I wasn't there, and I don't mean to second guess a professional.
Did you see pictures of it afterwards?
Yeah, it was huge. Yeah. It was huge. But I've seen cuts like that before, and the fight was not stopped immediately because the blood was running down the side of the eye. It's always about the fighter's vision, and if his vision was impaired. And I don't know if that was the case. However, it was a huge cut. It was enormous. So you can't really get too down on the doctor. But it was an enormous cut.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right that they err on the side of caution.
Yeah. And New York is just not as experienced.
We're only a couple of years in.
Right, exactly. The infrastructure, and they messed up in the weigh-ins for Gastelum too. Again, Gastelum sort of kind of cheated a little bit. It seemed.
Push off a towel
off his coach. His elbow.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. His elbow was slightly touching the coach, and it looked like he was resting a little bit of his weight on his coach.
He got punished for it.
He definitely did, and but that kind of those kind of irregularities should not happen, and they sometimes do, but they didn't. Who was the towel pusher before? It was
Cormier.
Yeah, Cormier. Where was that fight take place? That wasn't.
That's a good question. That might have been here.
Was it here?
Now I got to look it up.
Yeah.
Now I'm just concerned.
But there's some commissions, and for the guys that don't know, the commissions have nothing to do with the UFC brass. And to think that they manipulate them is not really true. And I actually, in G and York's last fight, we fought a premiere, and the commissioners were there. And we deal with them on a regular basis. This commissioner was the Massachusetts State Commission, and they had just come from the Boston show. And, the show where Greg Hardy, had taken an inhaler between rounds. And and so we were kind of like talking about it, and they're like, really exhausted because obviously it was a black guy to the commission in Massachusetts, but they're really hardworking guys who definitely do their best, and you can see the relationship that they have with the promotions is symbiotic in the sense that they both work together. However, they're not at the promotion's beck and call by any means, and sometimes they'll call something out, which it will definitely kind of be adverse to the promoter, like, oh, this guy can't fight, or this guy can't be a second, or this or that, because they don't have their paperwork in order. And, it's not like whatever the UFC says their commission does. It's not true at all. You're on the inside, and not to say that I'm so high up in there, but I've seen the commissions work. The commissions are the commissions, and they're run by the state, and some commissions are more experienced than others.
Well, I think you got something going on there, because that was in Buffalo, New York. So UFC 210. Cormier pushed the towel.
Yeah.
New York's got some work to do.
No, it's true because they don't have the same experience. And also, you can see it whenever there's a decision in certain states because the commission is not filled with MMA guys.
Boxing.
They're filled with old boxing guys that don't understand exactly how the scoring is different. They're watching an armbar, triangle choke, they're like, I don't know what the hell that is, and they don't score the same way.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So it's part of the growth of the sport.
Yeah, we'll get there.
And also, I won't say who, but there's certain referees that come out of the New York area, they're really poor referees. And they're in the UFC. They're in the UFC, but they're just poor referees. They're not at the same level as, Big John or what's the guy with the dreadlocks? Shoot, I forgot his name. Who's really good. His black eyes with dreadlocks.
Oh my God. His name.
Yeah. But they're quite good. It's not perfect all the time, but he's there. Yeah,
it's gonna bother me. I'm gonna think about it all day.
Yeah,
but it was a great day for New York. It was sold out. It didn't make $6.5 million on the gate.
It made $6.5 million
just on ticket sales.
Wow.
The president was in attendance. The Rock was there handing out his BMF belt. It was a big event. I mean, try getting around Madison Square Garden last night.
And it's it's interesting. I'm obviously not a Trump supporter, but it's probably the first time the president of the United States has sat in on a. I mean, there've been sitting senators who sat in, but even I believe towards the end, I'm correct. I might not be correct, but I believe John McCain, who was very anti-MMA for a long time, I think he actually came to a fight later on when he changed his stance. I believe so. I'm not sure.
But regardless of your political affiliation, it is a big deal.
Big deal.
The
last time to have a sitting president be involved in the martial arts community at a deep level was in the Teddy Roosevelt in the 20s. When he was karate? He's a judo posthumously awarded judo black belt, very, very interested in the grappling arts, all fighting arts, and also was really interested in an avid follower of all the professional wrestling at the time, which was not fake. And
didn't he wrestle a bear or something?
He killed a bear. That's why he's Teddy Roosevelt. He killed a bear.
I don't know my history.
And then that's where teddy bears come from. No, that's where teddy bears come from.
No.
That's true.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah, so his name was Teddy.
Yeah.
He hated it. Actually, it's interesting. Teddy Roosevelt hated his nickname, but he killed a bear. I forget in what circumstance. And then I was actually
hopefully.
yeah, something like that. Well, they were hunting, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they started making bears and little bears and calling him Teddy. And it was actually a British company originally, but then it became an American
That's
thing.
weird.
And that's how Teddy bears.
Doesn't that seem weird? Like I would think the teddy bears have been around for like
Forever.
decades.
Well, yeah, of course.
Hundreds of years.
Well, it's already 100 years
what'd they
now.
call-
It's already 100 years now.
Yeah. What'd they call it before Teddy Roosevelt, though? Just a
There
bear.
was no
It's a
teddy
bear.
bears. There were no teddy bears.
There was no bear toys at all.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They started making bears.
I'm sure there was a bear toy at some level.
and they just called
but-
it bear.
Yeah, or where but there would be no difference between a doll, a bear, a dunk, whatever. People didn't have
And they just called
specifically
it
bear.
stuffed animal.
A stuffed animal, right? Exactly, right. But
All
that's
right.
where teddy bears come from.
Interesting. You learn a lot on this show.
I know, right? but it's funny because Roosevelt is the last president to have a significant
Didn't
interest
Ronald
in martial
Reagan
arts.
do karate stuff in one
No,
of his
he was
movies?
given more boxing, but he was given an honorary Taekwondo black belt by Jun Rhee. But he never trained. It was honorary, Like, so there's actually I think Nixon was given honorary.
I heard a funny joke.
What?
It's a martial artist says, I trained under Bruce Lee. My dojo was on the first floor. Bruce Lee was on the second.
It's funny you should say that, but Bruce Lee's original Oakland dojo just reopened.
Oh,
A Jeet Kune Do instructor, at least found the space and refurbished it, renovated it, and opened up. I don't know if it's exactly the same space. It might be like a little bit down because I don't know if the exact space exists. No, I'm pretty sure it is actually.
Probably haunted.
But it's like literally the same address. It's
That's cool.
it's just the building is not quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
But he in his original Oakland studio where his famous challenge match happened, and we talked about that book, Showdown in Oakland, where he fought.
and then that documentary they made on it. That wasn't very good.
He made a documentary on it.
Didn't they? They just did
The movie.
The movie.
Movie.
Yeah,
Not
it wasn't a documentary.
Yeah,
It was
a very
was
fantastic. For
based
sure.
on accounts, first-hand accounts.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're completely false.
Yeah.
And but Bruce Lee's a very interesting, polarizing figure. But and then also the Tarantino movie. We've already talked about.
I haven't
this,
seen that yet. I gotta see
the
it.
Tarantino movie is they're not
They didn't
happy
like
in the
that.
Bruce Lee community. But that fight did happen.
Mm-hmm.
It was Judah, Gene LaBelle, and Bruce Lee. And we talked about this on a previous podcast, but it's completely taken out of context. But anyway, so let's get back to the fights. So
What was your favorite fight?
okay, let me go over. This card started out, and we started watching the prelims, and it goes Arlovsky versus Jairzinho Rosenstruck, and boom, knockout.
Oh, scared the shit out of me.
I mean, it was a fadeaway, which is a lean back kind of move.
First round?
First round. It was seconds, very, very quick. And he just dropped Arlovsky like a sack of potatoes. So we're like, whoa. And then it comes to Edmund Shabazian versus Brad Tavares. And people might know Brad Tavares has been around a long time. He's a very, very skilled fighter. And Edmund Shabazian is interesting because you know who his coach is? Edward Tavardian, Ronda Rousey's old coach, who most people think is kind of a fraud. And though, obviously he knows something, but his combined team record when he had all those girls and also Ronda Rousey's boyfriend or now husband, I think husband. Now, didn't they get married?
Chad?
No, what's his name? The Travis
Brown.
Travis Brown, right. Their combined win-loss record was like 1 win and like 15, 20 losses. It was quite crazy. It was really, really bad. And however, this kid, Edmund Shabazian, has been under Tavardian for 10 years, since he was 10 years old. And he is 18 now or 19. And holy crap, this kid is really good. I mean, he is slick like you cannot believe. And I've watched a few of his fights. He's undefeated. But usually people kind of think of him as a grappler because he shoots all these great takedowns and finishes on the ground. And but he hit a beautiful 1-2, just a nice little 2-piece, boom, and then left kick for the KO. And what he did was he really camouflaged that, the jab cross, and then bam. It was just so beautiful to watch him. It was amazing. Yep. And so it's interesting that he's coming from that background. And again, it was a very short fight. and he starched him, and you know, taking out a named fighter where you know it was the kind of the matchmaker was sort of like, oh, let's give Brad Tavares a guy, you know, to see what happens. And man, that was a bad. And then it was Shane Burgos, who's out of New York, versus Amir Khani, and this is a kind of interesting fight because Shane Burgos is sort of like Diaz, where he's like that endurance fighter. And in the beginning of the round, he's just getting the snot kicked out of him. And, but Amir Khani takes him down and just runs a clinic on him on the ground. But Burgos survives. Second round, this is the problem with like grappling based strategies. Amir Khani got really tired, tries to do it again, and he has these big drags. You know, it's kind of interesting because he's like kind of like wants to be a think of Khabib. This kid wants to be a Khabib, but he's not as efficient. So he's using a lot of energy to drag Burgos to the ground, but then he doesn't get to finish. And then Burgos gets up and keeps hitting him body shot, boom, boom, over and over again. By the third round, the guy was exhausted, and Burgos just drops him and finishes him again. So 3 fights, 3 stoppages, and this was just a beautiful body shot. And then he hit him with a beautiful body shot, and then high kicked him for win. Okay, then so this is three knockouts. Then it's, you know, Corey Anderson,
Yeah.
he's like upcoming, right? He fights Johnny Walker. You know, that crazy Brazilian who now is training in Russia, and he's like, everybody's afraid to fight him.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who did like a backflip and injured himself, so he's been out a while, but he come back and they're like, okay, we're gonna put you up in Corey Anderson. And I think if Johnny Walker won this one, he would be in a short track to fighting, you know, John Jones, you know? Corey, with just old school precision, just fucks Walker up like nobody. So it's like, holy shit. He was patient and precise striking against like crazy movement, and he just hits him over the top, bunk, and KO win. And Johnny Walker, like he was not unconscious to get a referee stoppage because he stopped him, but then they pulled Corey out, and there had been some trash. So Corey's like screaming at him, you know, and Johnny Walker's like, he's like this, and he's just, the fight was taken out of him.
Wow.
And you know, it's like, you'd see, he's like, I thought I was the best guy in the world, and I'm not today. Yeah, wake up. And it was just nice to see really crisp, precise striking. Wow. You know, from Anderson, and it was great. So, okay, 4 fights.
These are still prelims.
Yeah, these are prelims. 4 fights, 4 stoppages. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God.
UFC's probably freaking out.
Yeah.
We need to get another fight in here.
No, but I mean, it was like unreal. And the thing was, they weren't just stoppages, but every single one was very technical. Like, they were just really, really, it wasn't like, you know, 2 guys just banging on each other, right? It was very, very technical striking, very technical movement, and just beautiful. And then this is the one where this is actually the fight I was looking for. This is, to me, was the name fight. It was Gregor Gillespie versus Kevin Lee. And I've said many times on the podcast, I'm a huge Gregor Gillespie fan, but I'm also a huge Kevin Lee fan. And kind of like decision, you know, like, but you know, it has been on the wrong end of decisions for a while. But you know, Kevin Lee he talked about it. He was on another podcast that's a little bit more popular than ours, called Joe Rogan. I don't know if somebody's heard of it. Never heard of it. Me neither. No. And you know, supposedly, I actually listened to it. Joe was like, you should find like a new camp, because people don't understand. Kevin Lee's original coach, Robert Falls, took his own life. It was a few years ago. So he's been kind of a Ronin. He's never been in one place one time. He hasn't gotten the work he needs to. And you kind of see that in some of his fights. He was almost there. He was almost there, but he didn't quite get it. And he's really good. And I was like, wow, this is a great fight. And you could, again, whoever won this fight, they're in that next echelon of like elite of the division. They're going far. And I was like, I wasn't going hard for, you know, Gregor Gillespie, but I thought he would take it. And Gregor Gillespie, people don't realize that the guy's wrestling is insane. His striking is really good, but his wrestling is insane. But again, he kind of did this, like, I'm going to go into the opponent's realm. And he tried to outstrike Kevin Lee. But again, it's 2 wrestlers who have great striking. Like, it's really great martial arts. You know, they start as one thing, and they go, but, you know, Lee just has the experience, and they had a beautiful striking battle. I mean, like, to see 2 grapplers go at it and have such technique and precision, but Lee's was just a little bit more flowy. And to me, that was like kind of like an interesting theme of this night. And it's like the rhythm and the flow. And Kevin Lee's got this like boom, boom. Gregor was just a little bit stiffer. And this was amazing. This was a really, really interesting move because usually you like jab, cross, and then you'll kick with your back leg, and sometimes you switch it up. But this one, Kevin Lee did something very interesting where he hit a jab, right? He went over the top and he hits with the right hand. He starts with the right hand and he does a switch stance and kicks the guy with his right foot. But he does the switch stance so small and so subtly that you can't even see it. He camouflaged the kick. And the kick just went right up and bunk. And it was like timber. Gillespie just falls. Do you see how he fell? Did you see how he fell back against the cage and just slid down like a cartoon, like one of the cartoon animals, and they go and they just slide down the wall when they play. And I'm like, oh, poor Gregor. And I just like, look, it can happen to anyone. It was really slick move.
Nobody expected it.
It was a really slick move. Was Lee the underdog, betting wise?
I don't know if he's the underdog, but they didn't expect that sort of finish. I don't know if you saw I was watching the videos of the highlights this morning, and they showed the reactions of like the audience, and the commentators, and everybody else. It was like, what? That came out of nowhere.
It was so slick and so like. It was so camouflaged. It was a really good move. Yeah. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful to watch.
What a night to do it too.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sold out crowd in New York City.
Exactly. And poor Gregor's the one from New York City, from Long Island. But anyway, so now we're talking one.
I asked him to be on our podcast and he didn't respond. So fuck Gregor Gillespie.
No, it's okay.
Nah.
Well, okay.
You're dead to us.
You're dead. You're dead to me. So, but now it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Who's going to ruin the streak?
5 fights. Yes. Okay. Of course, who's going to ruin the streak? Mr. My Balls Are Hot.
Oh,
then
Derek.
And then Lewis and Ivanov. Ivanov is a sambo guy from Romania, and he's never the best guy to watch. He's just slow and plodding. But this guy was so freaking tough. I mean, he was just taking a beating. Lewis looked actually much better than he did before, and but the interesting thing was Ivanov got a few throws, but his grappling is not, even though he's a sambo champion, his grappling reminds me of old school judo grappling that has not adjusted for the MMA reality where you have to fight someone who is completely 100% not willing to grapple with you. You go into grappling competition, you have to grapple. I have to grapple. So they're not going to not grapple because there's a penalty and you'll probably get disqualified. So you just agree to grapple. Same thing to striking. If I just run away from you in an entire striking battle, I'd probably get a penalty, right? So and he threw Lewis a few times. It was really nice, some beautiful judo, but then didn't really control him and actually tried to do a very low percentage moves, Americana lock from side control. And when a guy is so big and round, you gotta focus on pinning him. And he could have won there. All he had to do was a top crucifix and just elbow him. But he went for a crappy submission. And then he did the same thing twice. And Lewis just exploded up and, just stand up and ran away. But Ivanov just ate so much damage. It was not really the most technical fight, but yeah, it ruined the streak. and you got to give Ivanov credit for being one tough son of a gun. So that ruined the streak. Then the main card starts. Okay, now it's Wonderboy Thompson versus Vicente Luque. And I want to talk about this one. And then Gastelum Mattil and Diaz Masvidal. And I want to talk about this really interesting theme of this night is the idea of rhythm. We just talked about that, right? We talk about flow a lot as a martial artist, like alpha state and flow. And part of that is getting your rhythm, getting your thing to go, and Masvidal had such a beautiful rhythm in his fight. And you know what? This is amazing because you could tell that he was not stressed out. He was moving around, joking, laughing, and he was having a great time. And he was so flowy in movement and he was achieving his alpha state. But part of it, he's bouncing and moving. And it seemed like, I heard after the fight that Diaz said that he had an injury and he didn't trust his cardio. And he lost in the flow. And the same thing you could say with Thompson in the beginning. Luke is coming at him like a tank. He's coming. And then as the fight went on, Thompson hits this like, what's the thing in the video game when you do all the buttons right and you're just like
button mashing?
Yeah, but you're like everything's right.
A combo or something?
Yeah, it's like bang, 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 bang. He's like in the flows. He's the Neo in the Matrix. Yeah. And Luke was just stuck there and just bong, bong, bong. And he was just hitting a masterclass, the last round, a masterclass of flow and just hitting him with whatever he wanted. Boom, he's here, he's there, he's over there, bum, bum, bum. And a beautiful example of, kickboxing, karate taken to work in MMA and kickboxing. And in the beginning, Luke kind of, he was hitting hard, but towards the end, it was side kicks, footwork, movement, and he just ran a clinic on angles and flow, and it was amazing. And then the same thing, you could say the Gastelum Till was kind of like the same thing. It was like, Till was just a cleaner flow. It was cleaner movement, and he was more dominant. And I thought Gastelum could have been smarter. It became a kickboxing match, and Gastelum, you're a grappler first. Till's not a grappler. Why are you going into his arena and not trying to grapple with him? And he was not as effective in the clinch as I really hoped he was. And the way he was moving, he just wasn't as clean. And the same thing reminded me when he fought Adesanya. Adesanya the guy has better rhythm. He's got that. Now, rhythm and flow are not the same thing. They're not the same thing, but they kind of feed into each other. It's like, you ever go to dancing, right? You need the rhythm to respond to the music. But then you get into the state of euphoria and flow where you're the music, like you're at this concert and you're just part of this movement, and that's the flow state. When you're just forgetting what's around you, you're just there in the zone. But you can't get to the zone if you keep bumping into you. Keep bumping into you. And you're like, what? You lose your rhythm. You lose your flow. And Thompson kept using sidekicks to mess up Luque's flow. And the same thing, using side, couldn't get started. And I felt the same thing with Masvidal. Masvidal was using a lot of things like that were just making Diaz not get his flow. And I think also it's probably because he was injured. Mm-hmm. But tonight was a night of guys with rhythm and guys who couldn't get the rhythm going.
Darren Till said some interesting things in his post-fight press conference. He said he was terrified of this fight, and he wanted to fake an injury to get out of it. He said he woke up this morning, Saturday morning, and he said, "I'm just what can I fake? What can I get out of? How do I get out of this?" Is the New York City's big market? He was just scared.
He was scared of Gastelum, or he was
scared of the fight in general. I don't know if it was Gastelum specifically, but it was just the pressure of the entire event and the fight. And he was up until he was in the ring, he wanted to back out.
You can't really show true courage and bravery and guts and skill unless you feel fear.
Yeah, this guy, he said, if one of these fighters tells you they're not afraid before they walk into that ring, they're lying.
Yeah, I'd say they're either lying or they're sociopaths.
That's true. Yeah,
one or the other, and they're either lying or they're psychopaths. Yeah. And you cannot go in. And another one, Donald Cerrone always said that he would have these like panic attacks. And if any fighter tells you that has some level of fear, and fear is what keeps you alive. It's good to have fear. Like it just can't let it take control. But that he overcame that and pushed through is great. And he had a masterful performance. Really, really. I mean, he looks much better at that weight class. He moved up a weight class. And
try to get him on the show, too.
Much, much better.
It was close. I know somebody that knows him personally, but didn't work out.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll get there. We have a lot of really good guests lined up.
Yeah, we don't need these guys.
Yeah.
When are we going to get G on the show? We don't need these guys.
G's actually in Thailand right now training.
Oh, all right. Well, so, we don't need G anyways.
Actually, it'd be hard because he has a 9-to-5 job. But we have Yora coming on. So
beautiful.
Yeah. So hopefully next week we can have him on.
Great.
But I'm really excited who we're going to have on coming up forward because we have a couple, two women warriors. They're amazing coming up. I'm super psyched, but we'll keep that as a surprise going forward. One of the most amazing knife fighters. No, one of the most amazing knife fighters in the world. So, female knife fighters. And
I don't know. Have you seen my ex-wife? She's pretty good with a knife.
Whose wife?
My ex-wife.
Your ex-wife. You don't have an ex-wife, do you?
I do.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that.
Yeah. We're learning things today.
I had no idea.
I did not get stabbed by my ex-wife. Allegedly. But yeah, no. So do we have good guests coming on?
Yeah, no, exactly. But we'll take anybody. We'll take
anybody. We're just dredging the garbage heap over here. Who wants to be on the show?
No, I was going to say we'd take anybody from the UFC roster, but
nobody from Bellator. UFC only.
Yeah.
Frank Mir called.
Really,
yeah, I sent it to voicemail. Well, call him.
We'll get back to you. I'll have my people call your people.
Chael Sonnen, he wants to be part of it. We sent him the voicemail. Too.
I'm sorry. I don't know if I could sit across from a fervent Trump supporter.
We're just burning bridges today.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's the title of the episode. Burn bridges.
But it was a great card, and the last week we missed it because I was a little in the weather, but we missed the Damian Maia Askren card.
Congratulations,
and people were really surprised. But I said to a lot of people, a lot of times when it's two grapplers, not unlike. Actually, the funny thing is Masvidal Diaz are both known as strikers, but they start out as grapplers. Masvidal started as a wrestler, and Diaz, of course, a jiu-jitsu guy. So, a lot of times you have two grapplers go at it, and it'll become a striking match. They kind of see where they're going to have an advantage. And, you have to be tactical, and I understand the concept of wanting to go into your opponent's strength and really fight him. But, to me, Maso made it smart. He's like, I'm going to use my clinch grappling to offset, Diaz's rhythm, and then I'm gonna get him. And the strike that really was the main strike that he won the fight on was first round. It was off the clinch, and it was not outside boxing. It was inside off the clinch, a little bit of wrestling movement, and then some strikes from the clinch, and boom, elbow, and then. That's what opened him up. And so it is very interesting to see how his approach. But he definitely fought on the outside. And I found almost every single round went to Masvidal. I have to look at it again. I didn't score it so deeply, but he was just moving so well. He didn't really take that much damage in his fight. And Diaz looked like pretty messed up. Not just the cut, I mean everywhere. But I give him, he's a warrior. That kid is a warrior. Most people would have gone down from that kick. And he did not. He came up and he just fought right through it. And, he said he had a knee injury. Hey, that is a warrior right there. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they fight for money. They fight for, and even Diaz said before, he's like, I didn't want to fight because there was nobody that I really wanted to be I was interested in fighting. And in Masvidal's, I'm interested. I totally get that. If somebody doesn't light the fire in you, then why do you want to go? And definitely probably felt some fear too, but it's excitement. How do you deal with those nerves, and that's where you get your bona fides as a fighter. Is everybody feels the same thing, everybody feels it, but how do you maintain your rhythm, your flow, and on your ability to perform under those stressful conditions? And I've had many people under me where I'm like, if you can't maintain a certain level of performance, it's not for you. This is too dangerous. So it's amazing that Till did that, and also Diaz, all the fighters, they came in and they really performed. It was fantastic. Yeah,
good event all around.
Yeah,
big spotlight on New York City.
Yeah, people thought the stoppage was early. It's debatable. But it was still, up until that point, it was a great fight. I don't know if people were booing because it was great. I think they wanted to see more blood.
Yeah, they just want to see more.
Yeah.
Punch him in the eye again.
I was, definitely wanted to see more because it was so good. It was just so good. Yeah. It was a treat to watch two really technical fighters go at it.
Dana White called Masvidal the fighter of the year. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
He definitely has some great performances, especially the Askren knockout where, I think most people thought Askren was going to take that fight.
Did you?
I didn't.
You
No,
didn't
way. No way. Absolutely not. I didn't think it would be that fast though.
Yeah.
But
I don't think anybody thought that. This is tough for Masvidal.
Is that the fight the fastest knockout ever?
I don't think that's the fastest.
Yeah.
We're going to double check our numbers.
It was pretty freaking fast. It was 4 seconds? Is there any UFC
I remember
fight
McGregor had a quick one.
No,
fastest KO in UFC.
Yeah, he had Aldo, but
Manny Nunez. Is it? The fastest... Oh, it's like a website or something. What's the shortest fight in UFC history?
I think this is the one. That was really short.
Dwayne Ludwig and Jonathan Goulet. 1 second.
1 second. Oh my God, I remember that fight.
But Masvidal is up there for sure.
Yeah. Look, it's not the fastest, but it's up there.
Wait a minute. I'm going to have to edit this a little bit. George Masvidal's knockout of Ben Askren was the fastest in UFC history. It was the fastest knockout. There was a stoppage in 1 second. So it is the fastest knockout.
What was the stoppage was for ground and pound, right? Because I remember Ludwig one. I remember he's eating ground and pound. Or was it a cut? I forgot. Anyway, yeah.
It's going to require more research. I'll put it in the notes.
Just put it, edit out. This editing.
But it's fast.
Yeah, right. It was really fast. Anyway, so we have some amazing stuff coming up too.
What's the next UFC event? Every weekend they have something, right?
Yeah. So that's Randamie and Nunes is coming up, which is a really good fight. There's no way.
Oh my God.
There's no way Randamie's going to win.
Pronounce that name.
Zabit Magomedsharipov.
All right, showing off here.
No, actually, you know, and Zabit is just a phenomenal fighter. He's one that I cannot wait to watch. There's also
Greg Hardy's back, our favorite.
Yeah, he's refighting, and ONE FC has some good fights coming up too. Magomedsharipov and Qatar is coming up on November 9th. The day before that is One Championship. And again, it sees the return of Edward Foyang, who I really love to watch. And it's just some really good fights coming up. After that, it's fight that I'm not so interested in. It's Blakovic, or I don't know how to pronounce the name, versus Jacare. That's okay. But the really one coming up is I'm really looking forward to seeing is Usman versus Covington in December.
Shogun still fights.
I know, right? There's some really big coming up. So anyway, but
Overeem, yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of Magomedsharipov and Qatar, I wouldn't give that. I'm going to give that to Zabit Magomedsharipov. But that's Alexander Volkov versus Greg Hardy, and it's a really good card coming up.
All right,
yeah,
we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah. So, but I'm looking for Zabit in that one. He is really interesting. And again, it's one in Moscow too. It's kind of interesting. The UFC's all over the place now. Like you gotta see it's becoming such a huge brand. Really amazing.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's UFC 244. We did it. Well, I didn't even have to watch it. I will watch it. I promise.
But it's like I said, it's interesting as how do you get good at martial arts? And one of the things is like develop a way to find your rhythm. You know, in striking and grappling, find your rhythm, find your move, find your flow. And super, super important. You see the guys who are able to impose their rhythm and their flow on fighters and get to win. It was amazing.
The rhythm method works in martial arts, but it does not work as birth control. Consult your physician.
That was great. That was actually really funny.
I don't know how many people actually know what the rhythm method is. I guess that's where we end it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
To this episode. Please share it with a friend. We're killing it in Israel now.
We are.
Yeah, we were in the top 100.
Oh wow, yeah,
ranked 75,
and the Philippines too, and then also Singapore,
Israel. They're all jumping on. We're going international.
That is great.
We'll start our tour next year.
Thank you to our listeners in Israel. I appreciate that. I know I got contacted with some people from around the world recently, from a lot of different places.
Yeah, questions. Stuart. I was talking to Stuart the other day, and he said that one of his friends was on a plane listening to our show and heard his voice, and they called him up and said, "You're on this podcast." So, small world.
Well, I thank Stuart for coming on, and also I thank his listener for listening to us. You know, hopefully we can give you some interesting coverage. But I really have some great guests coming up. Really excited about that.
All right, so stay tuned. We'll be back next week with some awesome stuff.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Marshall_Culture and on Instagram at MarshallCultureCast. Please leave a review on iTunes, and we'll see you next time on the Marshall Culture Podcast.